Hello everyone, welcome to ABC Interactive English. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sam.
And today it's day 1, part 1 of our story called The Riverman.
Ooh, the Riverman.
I think it's about a man and a river.
I think so. That's a fair guess.
Yes, I would say so. And as we head towards the summer months, this is actually a really good story to read because we know that this story takes place in July.
Ooh,
and how do we know that?
We know because it says that this festival thing that they're doing takes place on the 4th of July.
The 4th of July, which is America's birthday!
Yay,
Happy birthday, America! And people have a big event, right? It's kind of like double 10-day here. They have fireworks, and I think you guys kind of get together in a park and have barbecues or, get together with friends and family and do some interesting activities.
Yeah, I mean, this story that we're going to read about has a really interesting activity that I've never done in my life or heard anybody doing before.
Okay.
But one of the big things that happens on 4th of July is a hot dog eating contest.
Ooh.
Yeah,
okay.
that's on TV. You can watch that. And lots of fireworks. So
lots and lots of fireworks.
Yes, we hang out with friends, with our family.
Yeah.
We have a barbecue, hot dogs, hamburgers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and then
I kind of like these days because we often think of Thanksgiving and Christmas as being sort of family holidays, whereas the 4th of July, and in Canada, we have Canada Day, which is actually just a few days earlier. They're more like community parties, right? You have fun with your neighbors and you can see your classmates when you're young, and so it's kind of fun. And lots of different activities, sort of fun sports and contests that people do. But you're right. This one is something I've never heard of people doing for the 4th of July. Also, I've never really heard it called this. So let's start the story, The Riverman, and we'll find out about a fun story that happens on the 4th of July. I first met Jimmy Powers one 4th of July. He was in a birling match with Dickie Darrell. I watched them try to beat each other as I sat on a boom pile. All right, so yes, our story is titled The Riverman. So there's going to be a man and a river.
Yes.
And that's about all I know.
Yes, and actually a riverman, a lot of times, especially before, they were somebody who literally worked on the river, not just somebody who kind of was around the river, but they might be, as in this case, they might be helping logs go down the river.
Okay, or working
fishing
on boats
or working
something.
on boats. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, let's check out the story and see what this is all about.
Yes, so our story begins, I first met Jimmy Powers one 4th of July. He was in a birling match with Dickie Darrell.
There we go. A birling match on the 4th of July. So since it is a holiday, we get the idea that this match is probably for fun and not some big organized sports contest. But it is some kind of game because it's a match.
Yes, and so we had this word match, and it is a noun. And so you may have heard this word in other contexts as something else, but in this case, when we talk about sports, then it just means a sporting game, a match. You might play a soccer match or a volleyball match, and so that would be the game that you are playing. In this case, we have a birling match, which, do you know what birling is?
Not really, no.
Yeah, so this is kind of a strange word that you might not hear maybe ever, but it is a game where you are on a log, you and somebody else that you're against, and you're running, and the log is rolling, and you're trying to stay on the log and not fall off, and whoever can stay on the longest wins the match.
Okay, you just called it the name that I would know it by using the description. Log rolling.
Yes,
that's
log
what
rolling.
I would call it, a log rolling match.
Yes, that's the way I've heard it as well. So birling is a little bit different, but it is, I believe it is a Scottish word, and that's where that
birling.
came from. Yeah, something like that. I don't
okay,
know.
now it makes a bit more sense. But yes, it might also be called log rolling. So if you see that, and it's two people usually, right, playing against each other. I think if you had more, it would just get really confusing. And it's kind of fun. I don't know if anyone does it very seriously, but certainly I've seen people do it. And when I was a kid, my uncle had a house near a lake, and there was actually a log on a chain that just sat there, and you could, float on it or swim off it, and if you were really brave, you could climb it. I didn't know that my sister and I were burling when we were young. We called it log rolling. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So let's get back to our story. It says, I watched them try to beat each other as I sat on a boom pile. Ah, okay. So these two players are standing on the log. It takes a lot of balance, and you have to trick the other person by changing the direction that your feet are moving in, spinning the log this way and then back that way to try to beat the other person. And when you're playing a match or a game or in a contest or a competition, if you're really trying to win, you are also trying to beat your opponents. To beat is basically to win, to get more points, to come in a higher place than that person. If you come in first, you beat all the other competitors or all the other teams. You were the winner. Well done for you. And as these players were in the burling match trying to beat each other, it said the guy writing the story, the person telling the story, was sitting on a log boom pile.
Yes, and so this is also a word that you probably won't see very often anymore, but it actually refers to the kind of barrier that blocks all the logs when they're coming down the river so that they can kind of control where they're going or take them out of the water if they need to. So you've got to imagine that this whole scene is taking place on the river, and there's lots of logging and downed trees and all this kind of stuff, and probably a bunch of people around watching. And so this is called a boom pile, and the word pile, though, is a very common word that just means things kind of stacked on top of each other, heaped together, all together, put in a pile. If you are somebody who maybe doesn't like to do their laundry very often, then you might have piles of clothes on the ground. Usually, hopefully, they're in a laundry basket, but maybe they're piled on the ground.
Absolutely. I love to have friends come over to have dinner with me. I love to cook for them, but at the end of that dinner party, there will be a pile of dirty dishes that somebody will have to wash. Of course, this is a big amount, and it's kind of unorganized, right? I haven't sort of put everything neatly. That might be a stack of something. Like if you fold your laundry, you might make a stack of laundry. But if it's just all thrown together in a very unorganized way, it's a pile.
Yes.
All right, so we have a pile of logs. We have these two men burling, and we're going to find out more after our break. The two rivermen stood on either end of a floating log. Then both men started moving. With their feet, they rolled the log one way and then the other. It was a pretty even match, but most people were cheering for Jimmy. However, that ended when Jimmy fell off the log and into the river. Okay, we're with our story, The Rivermen. We're just getting started here. We know it's the 4th of July, so it's a nice, sunny summer day there in America. Everyone has the day off for America's Independence Day. Happy birthday to America. And as we were learning this, reading about this story, we were learning that some of the people in it are doing this game called burling. Now, we described it a bit, but actually the story tells us a bit more about this activity. It says the two rivermen, these were the two people in the match, in the contest against each other. The two rivermen stood on either end of a floating log. So imagine a log, a cut piece of a tree, floating there in the water, and two people on either end. Then both men started moving. With their feet, they rolled the log one way and then the other. And as I said, if you can change direction quickly and keep your balance, you might confuse the other person's feet, and of course they'll fall off the log in a big splash, and the person still standing there, yay, wins and is mostly dry.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine this right now, and I just feel like it's gotta be so slippery. Like, I don't know how you'd even change directions.
I don't know. I think these days they have special shoes with little spikes in them that give them a little bit. Or I've also seen people use bare feet.
That's what I was gonna say. I have an image in my head of seeing it on, I don't know, a TV show or something, and I think they had no shoes on at all, which just seems so crazy to me.
Kind of crazy, that's right. But as you said, sometimes they had these big piles of logs, and these rivermen, their job was to basically stand on them and make sure they made it all the way down the river. So
they're probably pretty good at it.
They were
already.
like, ballet dancers or cats. they don't fall over very easily when they're standing on these floating logs.
Yeah, they've probably had lots of practice.
Exactly.
And so then we had this word floating, and it's an adjective. And in this case, we were referring to the logs. We were saying that the logs are floating. So floating just means that it's sitting on top of the water and it's not sinking. Sinking would be the opposite. So you float or you sink. And some people, when they go swimming, they say like, oh, I don't like to swim because I can't float. I just sink.
Like a rock.
Like a rock. Especially if they try to do like the back float. We call that the back float.
Okay.
Some people have trouble with that. They'll lay on their back and they can't seem to find their balance and float, and so they start sinking.
Okay.
So to float, sit on top of the water.
Yeah, and if you're a log, if you're a duck, if you're a boat that's working properly, you will find it no problem to float. Or of course, the adjective for something that is floating would be that is on the water would be floating, I should say. And as these logs are floating, because of course they're made of wood, that's no problem. The burlers, I guess the men in the contest, these rivermen, they are rolling the log. Now, when you roll something, you basically turn it end over end. You might have done this in gym class at school. You tuck your head down and you might roll something. Of course, balls roll very easily along the floor, but if you try to roll a square or a triangle-shaped something, that wouldn't roll so well. Why do cars move quickly across the ground? Of course, because they have round wheels that roll, that turn and turn and turn and turn and turn again.
Yes, and so then let's get back to our story and see what is going to happen in this match. So we've got these two people playing, and it says, it was a pretty even match.
Wow.
But most people were cheering for Jimmy.
Oh,
Yeah, so if we remember our two names, we had Jimmy and Dickie, I believe.
Okay.
And so then Jimmy is the one who seems to be kind of the crowd favorite. Most people want him to win. They seem like they're cheering for him, but it's pretty even.
Maybe he's more handsome. Or maybe he's just from that town or something,
Possible.
right? And Dickie came from far away, so just Jimmy knows more people. But even though Jimmy might have more people cheering for him, in the match, he doesn't have much of an advantage because we learned there that the match was pretty even. And this adjective even basically means equal, equal on all sides. No one is far ahead of the other people. If a game is very even, that means the score is probably the same. Both teams are competing very, very well. It isn't very clear that one side is much stronger than the other one. No, they're quite equal or they're quite even.
Yes, and so let's see if it's going to stay even or what's going to happen.
What's gonna happen?
So the next part says, however, that ended when Jimmy fell off the log and into the river.
Splash.
So that ended meaning the cheering. The cheering kind of ended and also the being even kind of ended. So both of these things kind of stopped and Jimmy fell in the water.
Exactly. If you fall in the water, you lose, and obviously it's not even anymore because one guy is wet and in the water and is the loser. The other person is not wet, still standing on the log, and yay, you are the winner. So there you go. Well, that's an interesting start to our story. There's much more to come in the next couple of days. So for now, you guys can go out there, maybe find something you can put in your bathtub and practice burling.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That would be a terrible idea and probably would never work. But do be sure to come back and join us tomorrow when we'll have more about the Riverman. So we look forward to seeing you guys then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I first met Jimmy Powers one 4th of July. He was in a burling match with Dickie Darrell. I watched them try to beat each other as I sat on a boom pile. The two rivermen stood on either end of a floating log. Then both men started moving. With their feet, they rolled the log one way and then the other. It was a pretty even match, but most people were cheering for Jimmy. However, that ended when Jimmy fell off the log and into the river.
Hi， 大家好，我是 Stephanie。那我们今天一起看单字。第一个单字呢是 match， 名词，比赛、竞赛。Melissa finally beat her grandfather in a chess match. Melissa 终于在西洋棋比赛中打败了她的爷爷。第二个单字呢是 pile， 名词，堆叠。I want to sleep on a big pile of money. 我想睡在一大堆钱上面。 很多电影跟电视剧都是这么演的，我也想试试看。第3个单字呢是 roll， 动词，使滚动。这个单字让人想到蜡笔小新每次买不到动感超人或者是饼干的时候，都会在地上打滚来让妈妈屈服。那我们就听例句。Xinjiang rolled around on the floor. 小新在地板上打滚。最后一个单字呢是 even， 形容词，势均力敌的，相等的。It was an even game. The two teams had the same score. 比赛势均力敌，两队得分相同。好，那我们一起看今天的文法。第一个文法呢是 1/4 of July， 某一年的美国独立纪念日。1再加节日，表示某一年的点点点。4th of July 指的是7月4号，也就是美国独立纪念日。Bruce proposed to his wife one Valentine's Day. Bruce 在某一年的情人节向妻子求婚。第二个文法重点呢是 either and of something， 在某物的两端。either 在这里是形容词，两边的，两端的。and 就是名词，末端，尽头的意思。The two girls sat at either end of the seesaw. 两个女孩坐在跷跷板的两端，或者是说 There are weights on either end of the scale. 天平的两端都有砝码。句子里面的 weights 就是砝码的意思。最后一个重点呢是 fall 的用法。首先 fall 的三态呢是 fall, fell, fallen， 表示落下、掉落。fall 如果搭配不同的介系词的话呢，它就会有不一样的意思。这边我们一起看课文里面出现的两种。第一种呢是 fall off， 从某个地方跌落、掉落。off 单一个字的时候呢是远离、脱离某处，所以在这里呢前面加上 fall 是表示某人或者是某物跌落、掉落的动作，离开一个地方。比如说 Courtney had a bad dream and fell off the bed。Courtney 做了一场噩梦，并从床上跌下来。那第二种呢是 fall into， 掉进、跌进某处。这里呢，我们用刚刚的方式理解 ，into 是进入到某个空间里面，所以 fall into 就是跌进。像是有些人动作很慢的时候，我们也许就会揶揄他说 ，Did you fall into the toilet? What took you so long? 你是掉进马桶里了吗？怎么那么久？好，那今天的讲解就到这里 ，See you。
Hey guys, my name is Ian.
I'm Jamie.
And today we're playing a game called Word Drop, where we have different words or phrases on these index cards we've never seen before, and we're going to casually work them into conversation. Are you ready? Okay, I will go first. Okay, so sports. I love talking about sports. And amongst other subjects. But sports, I wish I was more sporty when I was growing up. I didn't really participate in a lot of sports because in New York City we just didn't have as many. But I love watching tennis, and I find it like really riveting. I've been to a bunch of games at the New York for the U.S. Open and like in other different tennis matches and stuff. And it's really interesting when you see different players competing, you know, because you just wonder if they're like really even in their abilities.
Ah, yeah. I think tennis is one of those sports where it's fun to play, or at least in my opinion, because you can, you know, like you don't have to get worried. You can get hit by the ball, but it's not that dangerous. But I also like watching. I really love watching a good tennis match.
I love watching a good tennis match as well. And it's really fun because when you watch tennis, like, you know, the ball girls and the ball boys that like stand on the side and like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
they collect the balls and stuff. And it's so cute because like sometimes the player will hit the ball and then you see the ball like roll slowly and then they like hurry to grab it. It's very cute.
Yeah.
Roll.
Oh, yeah. I was like, cute? Yeah, I think it's, that actually, I've seen a video where a guy, like, he accidentally, like, hits his head or something when he's coming back, but he's okay. He just acts like he's fine because they always just want to hurry and do their job. So, yeah, but I think a different sport that's also fun to watch, I think, is football. And I think football, I don't understand all the rules, but I think it's kind of interesting when they all jump in a pile.
Oh, yeah? Are you talking about I guess European football. Oh, no, American football.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, and a lot of times those big men, when they jump in a pile, there's like a loud boom.
And I think the thing with the pile, though, is that I always worry sometimes if they get hurt, right? Because usually it's one person, he's got the ball, and then somebody like jumps on top of them, and then somebody else jumps on top of them, right? And then you just have a giant pile of people. But I kind of wonder, like, you know, is the person at the bottom okay, right? And I think it's also quite dangerous to fall into a pile of people and like have more people pile on top of you. So yeah, I think falling into the pile is pretty dangerous.
What's the word?
Fall into.
See you next time.